Okay, so in this video I'm going to talk about the template structure for importation of single transactions. I'm going to show it with Xero, but the principle is exactly the same for all of the accounts packages, Sage 50 and 200, all follows the same kind of rules. So I'm going to go up to my PostTrans toolbar, press examples, and here we can see a list of examples. I'm just going to double click on single transaction. And let's move that into the middle of the screen. So here we've got a template, and basically anything above row 27 is used by PostTrans to represent the transaction header information. So now this is a single transaction. If you were doing multiple transactions, you probably would put them in the lines, but that's going to be covered in another video. But let's focus on single transactions here. So you can see in cell C2, we actually have the transaction type. So SI represents a sales invoice, PI represents a purchase invoice, PO purchase order, SC sales credit, etc. We'll see this in action in a minute. Obviously we've got the date and the contact, etc. We've got a whole series of other fields over here which, having selected a contact, you'll see will be updated. We've got three fields here which enable us to set the defaults. One is the default status, so you can set that to draft or posted. If you wanted to email the invoice as it was sent, you'd have to set that to posted. Plus two nominal defaults for purchase and sales, which is only used if you've got no stock and no default on the account. It just needs to fall back to a default nominal in that case, just for a text line there. You can see I've got two at £50. Of course, we could add the nominal column to map the nominal code in if we wished. But those are some defaults. We've also got some other defaults in setup. Let's just go into their defaults. So you can see we've got exclusive or inclusive of tax set up there, and we can search by contact by name, which is the default, or if we were going to search by account code, then we might select that. And we can also opt to update contacts, but that's again another video at the same time as importing the transaction. But primarily what we're trying to focus on here is the top portion contains the transaction header information. And down below on row 28, there's a whole series of tags in row 28 which denote the line information. So here we've got TL posted, and when we post something we'll see that in action. We've got the item, so that's your product or service code. That's optional, wouldn't need to be there. Then we've got a description. Now PostTrans always needs a description. As it works down, if there's 5 empty rows, then it says that's the end of the transaction. Otherwise it imports them. Obviously a quantity, a unit price, and any discount. I can delete those, I can rearrange them. I think with the exception of description, they're all optional. Basically, if you had no quantity but you had a value, it would put the quantity of 1 in because that's the logical thing to do, etc. It will pull the unit price out of the system, also if it's not specified in the sheet. Okay, let's search for the contact. I'm going to just type SAM, and you can see there, oh, it's got a load of old rubbish in it, but it's brought up anything beginning with SAM in it. So that's brought up my contact. It's filled in the address, a load of old garbage rubbish. They don't owe us anything, so nothing's filled in there. But you can see there it's populated. Now, I just happen to have, or I'm using tracking code, so let's just add that to the spreadsheet. So all I do is go up to tags, and that opens up a nice window like this. And you can see here we've got several tabs in here. So there's all my line information, my quantity, my description, my unit price, everything to do with a transaction line. In here I have header information, so they're prefixed with TL, TH. So there's my transaction type, contact date, due date, all that sort of stuff, customer reference. I also have related information, so in here I can put through my customer. So we just saw that in action. That populates with the contact information. And in Xero, that can actually optionally update the contact too, which will be covered in a different video. But what we're going to do is we want the tracking code. So I'm going to type in here actually track. I would do if I could type track. So here we can see it's offered us 4 different options. So we can specify on the line the track code, which we'd expect, but we can also set a default on the header. So if I just double click on that, that's offering me some help here. I'm just going to OK that. But what that's done now is that's added that mapping to the header of our template. So now we could search in there. If we put NO in there, that will tab away. That will fill it in. Okay, so that's how we map to the header, and of course we can actually move that around the header. So if I wasn't happy with it there, I can move it, because what PostTrans does, when you press import, it first reads cell A1, and in the comment of cell A1 it says Xero trans. So if I was importing a nominal, it would be Xero trans nom, I believe. If it was Sage 50, it'd be Sage 50 trans, etc. So that tells it that it is a PostTrans template. So if you managed to move that comment out of cell A1, and in other words, you insert a column, PostTrans would no longer recognize this as a PostTrans template. And then what it does is it scans down looking for all the comments, and all the comments have what the tag name in the first line, plus a description of how they work and what you can do, in order to work out what's mapped to the header. Now, if I wanted to delete some of these tags, I could go in and right click and say delete note, but I do also have the facility in here. If I go to tags, I can actually go to the properties and I can say delete tag, and you can see there it will delete them. I can also do other things, like we just did the customer update. We just searched for the customer. We can turn on and off in cell searching. And also, when we press the clear button up here, we can say whether the cell should be cleared or not during the clear operation. Okay, so let's just close that down. So that's the tags and how they work in the transaction header. We've also got a series of tags in row 28, which denote what's in each column. Again, we just press the tag button. We can be anywhere down here. And PostTrans is intelligent enough to realize that that's where we're going to add them. We're going to add them in. Let's have, it'll be the tax code. So now we've designated this column to be the tax code. Now we've got an arrow up in there, so that means in-cell searching is working. Another video on in-cell searching, and part of the training series. So now I can override the default for the tax code, which I could have done with the nominal and all the rest of it. But that's how we added it. And if we want to turn the in-cell searching off, again, we can go into the cell properties and we can say turn that off or on. Okay, so now let's see all this in action. Let's press the import button. Let's put a ref in first. Okay, press import. So now PostTrans is opening the connection and it's refreshed anything it needs to. It basically caches all the nominal and product lists, so optimal performance, and it's now displaying a list of a confirmation window. So here we can see the company it's going into. We can see the contact it's writing. It's exclusive of VAT. There's the summary total, plus a breakdown of how much each stock item, plus its margin, and the fact we're pushing some analysis to some of our tracking codes, and a brief explanation of how it treats tax. Now, if I had multiple transactions, I could say don't come up with this confirmation again. I can turn it off also in the settings. Now, I'm just going to press post transaction, and there we have written our first invoice into Xero. So if I double click on that, PostTrans will open the ledger, and there is my invoice I've just pushed in, and there's all the values on it. So very simple. Now, if I was to then press the import button again, because this has now got all posted against it, look, it no longer imports. It's now marked it not only with the transaction number, but the fact it's been imported. So we can no longer import. So in order to import again, I would have to scrub that out. I could add another stock item using in-cell searching. See there, it brought the price over. I can put 3 items of that in. And let's change its transaction type. Let's press space here. Ooh, now in Xero, I can actually push in a purchase invoice. It's just as easy because customers and contacts can be customers and suppliers. So, oh, it's just telling me the tax is wrong because it's an income rather than expenses. So that was a nice bit of validation. Same up here on the default. Let's just change that. Again, purchase invoice, big summary, good validation going on. And there we go, it's pushed it into Xero. So if I double click on that, we should now see that's in our bill section, a purchase transaction. And there it is, with the extra line we added to the transaction.